Why do less than 1% of us control the world today? What happened? Can we change this for the better? Is this all about greed, and so is it all about the unchangeable human condition? If it is, then I think we're doomed, because we can't change human nature. But I think we can change human behaviour. Back in the 14th century, we all lived in another social system, the medieval world. The most important thing that we were all worried about then was not money, but what would happen to us after we died. The only way to avoid damnation was to obey the church, and even better, to pay the church. You also didn't have to worry about rising or falling in society, because your place in the world was fixed by the church. But then, Luther offered this new idea, that man did not need an institution to stand between him and God. He could save his own soul by what he did. He could control his place in society by what he did. From this breakthrough idea, the concept of the individual emerged. This later led to the idea of democracy and to the idea of a state. It meant that it was safe to think your own thoughts and to observe with your own eyes, and so it also gave birth to science. Everything changed as a result of this idea. This process is happening again. In 1905, Henry Ford established the new rules for mass production and of mass consumption. Since then, we've used these rules to design and operate the institutions that we rely on today. Just as medieval man gave up his soul to the institution of the church, so modern people like us have given up their lives to the institutions of the mundane. We did this because for a long time it worked. It worked very well. It looked like a great idea for most of us. But in the last 40 years, these rules have started to work against us. Why is this? Did we suddenly get evil leaders? No, I don't think so. I think it's more a question of design and systems issues. This one slide explains it all for me. This is a picture of 50 years of farming on Prince Edward Island. What we see at first is the stable old way of mixed low-energy farming. Then we see the advent of mass production farming. At first it looks great. Most farmers start to make a lot of money. But do you see the trap? See how his capital costs grow at a faster rate than his profits can. He becomes a prisoner of the banks. It all boils down then to making the money. It's a systems issue. All those who use this model end up in this place over time. This is why there are so few farms today. This is why rural areas are so poor. This is why farmers' fields end up looking like this. Not because they're evil, but because they have to make the numbers. This is why manufacturing has to lay off workers. This is why even service jobs will be replaced. Now we're in the end game of this system. Now making money with money has become the end. This is why our system has broken all connection with the real needs of people and the real needs of the natural world. This is why this system cannot be fixed. But there is hope. I see real hope. A new and better idea for a system has arrived. It has the same big idea as Luther's. We don't need an institution to give us what we need. We can go direct to each other inside a community. Value is to be found in creating social ecosystems like a climax forest. The more complex the ecosystem, the more value for us all. Here is such a social ecosystem. It's called Airbnb. With Airbnb, I can get a nice human place to stay in at a price I can afford at a location I need. You get money from me for the use of your apartment. Airbnb get rewarded for connecting us. Airbnb does not have to build and finance hotels. It uses our own places as the capital base. Its job is to be the network aggregator. I think Airbnb is an archetype of this new system, a new system that will emerge in every part of our lives. The old organizations look powerful, but they're not. Any organization that relies on a large sunk capital cost and is closely controlled and centralized is vulnerable. The new networks look weak, but they're not. Like the archers at Agincourt, Networks of nimble people with nimble and cheap tools will take down the ponderous and the mighty. This new network idea will trump the old mass market idea. I think it's inevitable. If I'm right, so you and I are faced with a clear choice right now. Do you take the red pill or the blue one? Do you explore the future or hang on to the past? But what does taking the red pill mean? What should we do? Each of us is faced with the challenge of reinventing how we live, just as the men and women of the Reformation were faced with reinventing themselves and their world. I have some ideas about how we might do this, and I invite you to join me in exploring them.